Hi everybody, Stephen Bowers here with you, and let's talk tropics. We've got a developing tropical system in the northwestern Caribbean Sea. This is the infrared channel of a satellite. It measures the temperature of the cloud tops to show us where the strongest thunderstorms are, and this particular version actually colorizes those coldest cloud tops to show us where those strongest thunderstorms are, but it doesn't show us the small-scale details very well. We see those on the visible channel of the satellite during the daytime, and what really catches my attention is right in there. And as this resets, that's the sunset, then you see there does appear to be a circulation trying to close off from this. It's not very well organized, especially since the thunderstorms are primarily off to the east of that organizing circulation. So at this point, the National Hurricane Center is calling this potential tropical cyclone number 9. It is not yet a tropical depression and certainly not a tropical storm. It is expected to become a tropical storm during the day on Tuesday, if not by Tuesday afternoon. By 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we expect winds of about 50 miles per hour, and when this becomes a tropical storm, as it is expected to do so, its name will be Helene. Well, this will continue off toward the west-northwest, tracking through the Yucatan Straits as a tropical storm and entering the Gulf of Mexico soon after becoming a Category 1 hurricane with 85-mile-per-hour winds there on Wednesday. Now, we've already got tropical storm warnings and hurricane watches for parts of the Yucatan Peninsula, for western Cuba, and for the Isle of Pines. I should mention we also have tropical storm watches for the Florida Keys and for the Dry Tortugas out to the west of the Florida Keys. So this brushes by the Keys and stays mostly well to the west here of the Florida Peninsula as it intensifies, and by 2 a.m. Eastern Time, we've got a Category 2 hurricane strengthening with 105-mile-per-hour winds. I'm going to tell you that I wouldn't be surprised if this is stronger, and I'm going to show you why here in just a second, but by 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, we expect that this is coming into Appalachia Bay with 115-mile-per-hour winds. Again, I'm saying it may be a little bit stronger than that, but 115 would be a Category 3 hurricane. That's as far out as our future cast here goes, but then you see the National Hurricane Center's forecast track moving our system inland and weakening it quickly over Kentucky and Tennessee. So why do I expect that this could be stronger? Well, there's a current of very warm water that comes up through the Yucatan Straits, comes into the Gulf of Mexico, and it actually creates a small loop of very hot water here in the eastern part of the Gulf. And this tropical system is very likely to pass right over the warmest part of that, what's called the loop current, a very warm current there in the northwestern Caribbean Sea that flows up into the Gulf of Mexico. And this area has a history of favoring rapid intensification, especially when the loop current is in this current warming phase, which is exactly where it is right now. So that's why I say that this could actually be stronger, and there are some of the computer models that actually are forecasting at least a Category 4 hurricane, and I've even seen 2 forecasts that intensify this to a Category 5 hurricane briefly before weakening it and then moving it up into Appalachia Bay. Now, I showed you this last night. I want to show you again because this really tells a story of where this system is going. We've got this huge upper-level high-pressure circulation up here to the north, and then this huge low-pressure trough, kind of like a cold front, way up in the upper levels of the atmosphere. I should mention the 500 millibar level. That's how high in the atmosphere we have to go for the pressure to drop to 500 millibars. The air pressure goes lower and lower the higher up you go. This ends up being pretty close to about 20,000 feet above sea level. So now let's move this forward. This is Monday evening. That big area of high pressure in the upper layers of the atmosphere gets booted off to the east as this big low pressure trough swings down from the northwest, and it digs into Tuesday and Wednesday. The reason this is so important is as we have a hurricane entering the southeastern Gulf of Mexico, we get this strong southeasterly wind coming around the southern side of this big low pressure trough digging across the middle and lower Mississippi River Valley. That's going to help to direct our developing Hurricane Helene more toward the north and east, and this latest update from, this is the GFS American model, shows that maybe we should lean more toward the east on this latest forecast track and send this circulation up between this low pressure and this high pressure and out ahead again of this upper level low pressure wave or that trough. So this is where the steering mechanism is, and our GFS American model really shows it well. Now what I've done here is I've put the wind on here so you can see the circulation. That's the approximate center of this developing tropical system. Now we're going to move this forward, and it agrees considerably with the official track from the National Hurricane Center that I showed you here just a couple of minutes ago. We see this nearing the Yucatan Straits, tracking right between the Yucatan and the west end of Cuba and into the Gulf of Mexico. Then watch as it turns more toward the north and eventually more toward the northeast. You can kind of see this starting to track more toward Appalachia Bay and perhaps more toward the mouth of the Swanee River, as opposed to more toward Apalachicola, which is where the National Hurricane Center's track officially takes this. This races inland Thursday night through early Friday morning. It weakens over Georgia, and this particular computer model continues inland over the Carolinas and continues to weaken this. I want to show you one more model just so you know that there is some potential for variation, and this model doesn't really show a lot of variation. This is the European model, and I get asked about this one a lot. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you is that it's trying to develop this system a little farther south than the American model did. It doesn't look like that has any major implications on the eventual track, however. We still see this moving through the Yucatan Strait overnight Tuesday and into Wednesday morning and into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. It intensifies quickly as it moves over that warm loop current that I talked about over the east central Gulf, and then it approaches Appalachia Bay here at lunchtime Thursday. This again is lunchtime, I believe that's mountain time, and then this comes again racing inland, leaning more toward the east side of Appalachia Bay as opposed to the west side, as again the National Hurricane Center's forecast track did, and then we race inland across Georgia, the Carolinas, and perhaps up into far east Tennessee by Friday morning. So here are the spaghetti models. I do want to show you these because I know you can see them online, and I just want to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at here. They're in largely agreement with the models I just showed you here, though there's kind of a wide area, but in general, you know, you see the clustering of the models, and that's one thing I'm noticing is the cluster of models that's kind of near the center does seem to be trying to shift a little farther to the east. Now that would be good news for you for the folks around Pensacola, Mobile, and New Orleans, and even better news for places like Panama City and Apalachicola, but less good news for places like Anclote Key, even Cedar Key. The Tampa Bay area could be a little bit more under fire from a track like this, again leaning more toward the west. But I do want to point out that there are still some outlying tracks as far west as the Pensacola and Mobile area. So I'm not prepared to say you're completely out of the woods, but I do think this favors a more eastern and northeastern Gulf of Mexico track as opposed to a track toward the north central Gulf, which would be more Pensacola, Mobile, Biloxi, New Orleans. This seems to favor more that area between about Panama City and the Tampa Bay area. That's a fairly wide swath, I know, but we'll be able to narrow that down, of course, as we get a little closer in time to landfall, which again looks like it's going to happen Thursday night or early Friday morning, at least as a Category 3 hurricane, but as I say, there are some models that go as strong as a brief Category 5 hurricane just offshore, and then it comes ashore perhaps as a Category 4 hurricane. So there are still quite a few options here. We're watching those options for you. That's the latest update we have on this Monday evening. I'll keep you updated throughout this week.